Hey, what's up guys? Mike Willoughby here with the Steel Corner. It's been about a year since I've made a full-length video, so today we're going to talk, this topic's been coming up all the time recently. We're going to talk about when you're a new shooter, before you go shoot your first match, what do you need to know, what do you need to bring, and how do you go about it. So the first thing you're going to do is get on practicescore.com, find a match near you. If you can at all, try to find local competition shooters in your area. You can do this a couple ways, either through social media, try to find people, or you can go to your local indoor range, outdoor range, whatever you've got, ask around. Usually if somebody shoots competitions, it's pretty easy to tell. They'll be standing there with a bunch of gear on and shooting way too fast. So that's what I would recommend. If you can find a local mentor to get in with, somebody that can walk you through the process, that'll make it easier on you. But if you can't, it's no big deal. Practicescore.com is where you'll find all the matches in your local area. I'm going to gear this talk towards Steel Challenge since that's what I primarily shoot. So on practicescore.com you can search for a Steel Challenge match, register for the match. You need to decide what gun you're going to shoot in order to register. So there's 13 divisions within Steel Challenge. Pretty much any gun that you can think of has its own division. Primarily you'll see people come out with iron-sighted pistols from the holster for their first time. So that'd be something like a Glock, a SIG, any of the common carry guns. Alright, so let's say you've got your stock Glock 17. You decide that you're going to shoot that at the match. You're going to want to take at least 3 magazines. You can get by with 2. The primary thing is if you have 2 or 3 magazines, when you get done shooting a string, pass the magazine to someone on your squad. You take that magazine out, pass it back to somebody on your squad so they can start reloading it for you because you're probably going to need it. Production is now 15 rounds, so you no longer have to load to just 10 if you're going to shoot production. So hand it back to them, have them loaded up to 15 rounds. If you only have 10 round mags, regardless of your division, I would recommend having 5 mags, but you can still have somebody reload them in between if you need to do that. So stock Glock 17, what are some things you need to know other than the magazines? First, USPSA and Steel Challenge, the commands when you're unloading your gun are if you're finished, unload and show clear, remove your magazine, there's no magazine in here. You will rack the slide, let the round eject, you are now showing clear. If clear, hammer down and holster. So what you do then is you drop your slide, you point your gun downrange into the berm, pull the trigger. So whenever you show up to a match, your gun should always be in that condition. Completely empty, no magazine in the magazine well, nothing in the chamber, no dummy rounds, nothing like that. With your hammer down or striker fired guns with the trigger pulled. That's how your gun should be all the time at a match. Now when you go to the match, don't just show up like this with your gun sitting in a holster and then show up with it not in the bag or anything. You want to show up with your gun in a bag. So you want to show up to the range like this. You will go to a safe table when you first get there. You do not have to do that before you shoot. I always recommend it. Gives you a chance to get a hand on your gun for the day. Check to make sure nothing fell off on the way. And this is the exact opposite of how your gun should be when you're doing that. So in this case, I have a dry fire mag in the mag well and a dummy round in the chamber. So that's the exact opposite of what you should do when you go to the range. It should be empty magazine well, empty chamber, hammer down. So you would roll up, you would have your bag, you would go to the safe table. Do not handle your gun at your car, do not handle your gun in the middle of the range. There are designated safe tables at every range. Handle your gun there or at the firing line after the RO says make ready. So the same safe tables that you can handle your gun at, there's no ammunition handling at those tables. If you have a belt where you have magazine carriers on, most ranges allow you, and the rulebook allows you to have magazines in those magazine pouches, but you absolutely cannot handle them and you cannot load magazines at those designated safe tables. You can load your magazines anywhere else on the range. It doesn't matter. You could load them in your car. Most people show up to matches with them already loaded or load them while everybody's getting ready for the day. But do not load magazines at the safe tables and do not handle your guns anywhere other than the safe tables or the firing line after the make ready. The other thing I would highly recommend for your first match is to show up early before registration starts introduce yourself to a couple people when you get there, whoever you see around, and specifically tell them that you are new and try to find the match director. When you find the match director, let them know that you're new. They may have a new shooter's brief that they want to walk you through. They'll ask you if you have any questions. Let them know that you don't know where you're starting or what squad you're on or what that even means, and they will get you sorted out. If the match director is busy, if they're running around trying to do electronics or set up targets or whatever, find somebody that looks like they do this way too much and ask them. So equipment-wise, for your first match, most people show up with something that looks like this. It's just a standard leather belt, steel core. This is a normal duty style carry holster with no retention. So this is a Blade Tech, I believe. It has the Blade Tech belt attachment. These are really good. This attachment is not going anywhere. It snaps into place. You don't have to worry about it coming off mid-string. That's entertaining when it happens. If you have a paddle holster or something, that works as well. Just make sure that your belt is secured and that it's not going to pull off when you're drawing your gun. The big disadvantage to setups like this, it's not a big deal for your first few matches at all. It will not hold you back. But the big disadvantage is how close it sits to your body. It's really hard to draw when you're coming so far in and so high up. So that's why most people will run a setup that looks more like this. So this is my Carry Optics rig. It's what I run. It's what I run in USPSA, Falling Steel, Steel Challenge. So this is a Red Hill Tactical holster, which is just a Kydex holster. This is the Double Alpha Lynx belt. And as you can see, the holster is dropped and offset. So there's a good amount of space from the belt to the gun. They actually just changed the rules about how far away your gun can be. We're not going to get into that today. It also has adjustable positioning of the holster. Mag pouches are nice to have, but they're not necessary at all for Steel Challenge, so I would not worry about buying these. You can walk up to the shooting position with your magazines in your hand and set them on the barrel or the table or whatever's there. It doesn't matter whatsoever. So I would not stress about buying magazine pouches. Once you shoot a few matches, you'll probably want to change guns anyway. That's the way most people do anyway. So don't rush out and buy a ton of gear. If you have an on-the-waistband holster, show up with it and your magazines. So the other things that you want to take to the range, you're going to want good hearing and eye protection. Pretty much anything will do on the hearing side. Howard lights are really popular over-the-ear electronic muffs. I use those sometimes, but I primarily use plugs that have a little filter in them. Safariland makes a really popular type of those. It's just a black plug. Then I always use Hunter HD Gold prescription shooting glasses. Those are great. They're transition lenses, but any ballistic style glasses that you have will work. I always prefer to shoot in a ball cap as well. You'll also want to consider like normal outdoors things. So snacks, water, you'll want any sunscreen that you'll need. You can get by with a backpack your first few times. There's no problem with that whatsoever. But a lot of people bring the little cheap beach carts that you can get at any sporting goods store or at Walmart that fold up. You can get those for pretty cheap and haul all your stuff in. You'll also want to take at least 3 times the amount of ammo that it says is the minimum rounds required. Doesn't mean that you're going to shoot that much. However, if you're shooting a centerfire gun out of the holster with iron sights for your first match, you can expect to use at least double what the recommended round count is, and usually it's more than double. I think I went through 500 rounds my first 6-stage match. Another thing is you will be painting targets between each shooter, or at least between each squad while you're shooting. So don't wear anything super fancy that you're scared to get white paint on. Some days it's windy and you will get paint all over you. Same can be said about your shooting glasses. You'll probably have to clean those fairly regularly if it's windy at all on the range that day. So a couple other things. When you register for your match on Practice Score, there will probably be multiple times on there. And if you're not familiar with them, it can get kind of confusing. It will say, usually the way it's formatted is registration opens at 9 a.m., safety briefing at 9:45, hammer down at 10. So if it's your first time shooting, maybe even first couple times, I would get there at about 8:30. Before registration opens, get acquainted with the range. Sometimes these ranges are buried out in the middle of nowhere and it's not super clear where to go. So give yourself some time to actually find the shooting bays that you're going to. That way you can be early, introduce yourself to some people, ask questions. Don't be shy when you go to your first match. Nobody's going to think that you're crazy because you're new. Nobody cares how you shoot for the day. They only care that you're safe and that you have a good time. So that pretty much covers it for the day. The next video I'm going to make, it will not take a year to make this one, but it will be about actually shooting your first match and how to go through all of that. So we went through the basics, how to get registered, some things to look out for, what you actually need to take to the range, where you can and cannot load your magazines, where you can and cannot handle your gun. So next video we're going to talk about actually shooting the match, different stages, how to conduct yourself at the match to not look like a total newbie, and yeah, it'll be a good time. Before we go for the day, this is Beth. She is the newest Rimfire Pistol Optics Grandmaster and my girlfriend. And in the next video, when we go through how to actually shoot your match, she's going to be demonstrating everything. I'll play the role of RO. She'll play the role of newbie shooter, as always. So yeah, you got that to look forward to on the next episode. Thanks for watching.